Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about my ongoing research on the Ming Dynasty family. I will come back to the definition of Ming Dynasty family in a few minutes. But now let's first look at the background of this research. We all know that in late imperial China, the civil examination system played a key role in the reproduction of social-political hierarchies. Under the Ming, biennial licensing test and triennial qualifying test were held in the county, department, and prefectural yamens to choose eligible candidates for the triennial provincial test. Candidates who pass a very competitive provincial examinations will then move on to the metropolitan examinations held in the capital. The emperor administered a final, largely nominal palace examination for metropolitan graduates. After passing the palace exam, students became an official 进士, and at that time, their biographical information was recorded by officials in the 进士登科录 of that year. So the extant 进士登科录 are the main sources that will underline my research today. Since the palace degree became the sole guarantee for high political positions and elite status, the composition of Ming Jingshi is crucial for our understanding of social mobilities and the networks of Jingshi in the Ming. Many scholars have studied the social composition of the family background of Ming Jingshi, and one of the most famous works was done by He Bingdi in 1962 or 64 in his monograph called The Ladder of Success in Late Imperial China, Aspects of Social Mobility. He did the best that he can do in this research to look at the family background of Ming Qing Jingshi. However, there are many criticisms for this work. First, he only used the data of some 4,000 Jingshi in the Ming, which is less than 20% of the total Jingshi. And second, He only considered the immediate family members, namely the grandfather, father of Jingshi and Jingshi himself. So he didn't really account for the influence of, say, cousins and uncles in the fate of Jingshi. Therefore, in order to study questions like social mobility, I think we must first find out the trace of the family of origin of this Ming Jingshi. And thanks to the digitalization of a large amount of Ming Jingshi Dengke Lu in the CBDB, now we are able to use digital humanities techniques to join this academic debate. So now let's first look at the Ming Jingshi data in the CBDB. There's a downloadable spreadsheet on the CBDB website. I encourage you to download it now. It's in the dataset section under the download page. And the coverage of this spreadsheet is that, okay, so it mainly consists of the data from these two most comprehensive extant compilations of Ming Jingshi Dengke Lu. The first one is Ming Dai Dengke Lu Hui Bian, and the second one is Tianyige Ming Dai Jingshi Dengke Lu. Altogether, there are 14,000 Jingshi in 51 examination years under the Ming. The time that this data covers is around 200 years. So unfortunately, we lack data for the first 40 years and the last 30 years of the dynasty because of political reasons. But we do have very good data for the time in between. So if you want to look at which year or which Dengke Lu is included in this spreadsheet, you can look at the notes in the spreadsheet and explain it in detail. There are many interesting variables for each Jingshi recorded in this data sheet. So I've only listed the variables that of my research interest here. The first is obviously the name of the 进士 himself and his family members. The last name is important because family members tend to have the same last name. By the way, we do not consider relatives by marriage in this research simply because we do not have sufficient data for it. So the family only consists of family members who have the same last name. And next, we also have first name. First name is important because usually if it's a two-character first name, one character would be a generation name, which indicates the generation of this 进士 in his own family. And if it's a one-character first name, then usually the radical, the 偏旁 of this name will indicate the generation. Sometimes people from the same family also have similar 字, so it's also of my interest. And then we have a variable called 籍贯. It is roughly the native place of this family, but it is useful because it remains relatively stable throughout the Ming Dynasty. It is different from the birthplace and taking place of the 进士 because the latter two often varies, but the 籍贯 tend to become static. Then we have a variable called 户籍. 户籍 is also a variable in the Ming registration system for the purpose of tax collection, so it also remained relatively stable throughout the Ming. And also we can see some of the biographical information about the family members of 进士 in this spreadsheet. We have the names and sometimes the office, if there existed, the names and office of a 进士's great-grandfather, grandfather, father, and last name of his mother and wife. And with some exceptions, we have the names of the 进士's elder and younger brothers as well. And sometimes we have the names for the 进士's uncle and cousins as well. But the data for the 进士's brothers, uncles, and cousins are far from exhaustive. So then let's move on to the methodology of my work. So first, I tried to do some manual work, but then I realized that it is impossible to do it manually. So I learned some Python and wrote a Python program. So the design is, first, I eliminate the incomplete data in the spreadsheet. By incomplete, I mean, for example, if there is a blurred character in a cell of the sheet, then usually there will be a rectangle instead of a character in that place. And then the computer will detect this rectangle and eliminate the single cell. But I try to preserve the row of the 进士. So I only eliminate the blurred information so that we can have as many 进士 as possible left. So it turned out that there are around 12,000 进士 left. And then I divide and group this 进士 by A, their 籍贯, B, their last name, and C, their 户籍. Here, my assumption is that family members will share the same 籍贯, the same last name, and the same 户籍 at the same time. If one of these variables is different for two 进士, then I will consider them as from different families. And then in each group of the 进士 data, I select and save only people who share at least one family member with others in this group. I detect it by using the first name of family members. For example, if somebody's grandfather's name is identical to another person's, say, brother's name in the same group, then I will determine them as in the same family. But if within this group, this guy has no identical family member shared with other members, then I will eliminate this guy. And then the resultant groups are defined as 进士 families. So compared to previous work, the definition of family here is considerably expanded. For example, people who only share the same great-grandfather in a given group will become included, and also people from different generations will be considered. And then let's look at the result of the work. This is a breakdown of Ming Jingshi families. So here you can see most families only produced 2 Jingshi throughout the dynasty. But it's still remarkable because we only have data for 200 years. That's about 7 to 10 generations. So like this is remarkable, but what's most remarkable is the biggest families. There are some families who successfully produced like 7 to 10 Jingshi throughout these 200 years. That's above 1 for each generation in this family. The average 进士 that each family produced is about 2.3. Altogether, there are 1166 进士 family in my dataset. So that's a basic information of my finding. And now let's look at the geographical distribution of this 进士 family. First, in order to give you direct impression of their geographical congregation, I select the family which produced at least 6 进士 in my dataset, so you can have a look. The 2 biggest family which produced 10 进士 each, are from Fujian Xinhua Prefecture, Putian County, and Zhejiang Shaoxing, respectively. And if you look here, you can have a general sense that, most of these families are either from Fujian or from Zhejiang. And a few of them are from Sichuan as well. For the number of 6 families, you can see. So here, this 直隶 means 南直隶, which is roughly equivalent to today's Jiangsu and part of Anhui. This is Suzhou, this is Zhenjiang. So almost all of them are from southeastern China, and some of them are from Sichuan. So the whole picture is like this. The far left column is the name of province, and this column is the total number of 进士 from this province in the Ming. And this column is the number of 进士 who came from 进士 families in my definition from this province. And the final column is the percentage of 进士 who came from 进士 families in this province. So basically, this number is the result of this number divided by this number. So, and then I order the result by the percentage of 进士 from the 进士 family, from the highest to the lowest. And then you can see that Zhejiang and Fujian, Sichuan are indeed among the top. They are the top 3 provinces which produced, okay, let me put it this way. These are the top 3 provinces in which most 进士, the higher degree, there are a higher percentage of 进士 who came from a 进士 family. In contrast, these northern China provinces, some of them were actually quite successful in examination system. For example, Shandong produced 900 进士. It's even more than Sichuan, but here there are only like 15% of 进士 in Shandong are from Jingshi families. A quick note on the Zhili. Actually, there are two Zhili, the South Zhili and North Zhili in the Ming, but at this stage, I cannot differentiate these two provinces because in the original data, they are all recorded as Zhili. So you have to look at the prefecture's name and so on to determine whether it is Beizhili or Nanzhili. But my general impression is that the percentage for Nanzhili, for the South Zhili, is similar, is somewhere here. Yeah, and the data for the North Zhili is perhaps here. So there's a very clear division between southeastern China and the northern China. And in order to better visualize it, we can have a look. So here is the provinces which have the highest percentage. Sichuan is also good, and Nanjing perhaps somewhere in between here. And Yunnan very low, Guangdong very, very low. And a better way to visualize it is, of course, to create a heat map using the Chinese historical GIS, but I didn't got the time to do it. Then I also looked for the percentage of Jingshi from Jingshi families over time. So before 1430, the data is not so good. So perhaps this part is not so good. You should not consider it. And perhaps data after 1980s is also unavailable. So if we only look at the data in the trunk, then the average is 21. You can see not so clear, but the general trend is that the percentage rise as the time went by. But after the mid-Ming, the data, the percentage generally fall a little bit. This is perhaps because after mid-Ming, new Jingshi or Jingshi from grassroots families had not so long a time to build a big family or to support their family members. Okay, so here are some other interesting discoveries which may pave way to future research. The first is that if you look at the age variable in the spreadsheet, by age it means the age of the Jingshi when he obtained the degree. Then you can, and then I calculate the average age of each Jingshi family, and the overall average age of a man from Jingshi family, and the overall age of all Jingshi when they obtain the degree. And then I found out that the average age of a man from a Jingshi family is quite similar to that of a Jingshi from a grassroots family. So the figure for the previous, the formal group is this, and the figure for the latter one is this. So they are like quite similar. This result may indicate that coming from a Jingshi family may not accelerate your climbing the ladder of success. But again, it's just a figure, so perhaps there is some inaccuracy in this data, and we should look into my methodology and also other sources in order to explain it better. And the other discovery is that if you look at the subject of specialty for each Jingshi, that is the subject that they were taken, you will find out that most Jingshi families showed a strong preference for a Jingshi subject, say Shijing, Chunqiu. Over half of the large Jingshi family only produce Jingshi in one academic subject.
You mean like in one classic?
Yeah, so I mean.
So only on the Shi or the Chunzhou or.
Yes, I mean overall among this Jingshi family, there is no pattern for subject preference, but within individual family, each individual family will have a preference for either Shijing or Chunqiu or Yijing. But overall, I did not find, let's say, most Jingshi families prefer to take Shijing. Yeah, I did not find that. But the preference within each family shows that the culture capital or the jiaxue of Jingshi family did influence the growth, the education of younger Jingshi in this family. Otherwise, they won't have such strong preference for individual subject. So now let's look at some limitations of my work. The first is, as previous speakers have said, there are inconsistencies in variables. So actually these three limitations are not caused by the digitalization process. They are caused by the original data collecting, data compiling, and data storage practices of the Ming people and their Ming officials. The first is that there's inconsistencies in the definition. For example, the brother category was not consistent. Sometimes the brother is only refers to brother in one's atomic family, but sometimes the brother also contains one's first cousins, one's tangxiong or tangdi. This will cause huge difficulty if you want to study brother per se. Previously, I had a work on the birth order of Ming Jingshi, but then I realized since the category of brother is not so clearly defined, actually we cannot rely on this brother category to determine the birth order of a Jingshi. And then there are also fake information. A lot of scholars have produced work about fake information. For example, there is a phenomenon called 脱籍, by which it means that some Jingshi, in order to get a better chance of passing the exam, they will hide their original 籍贯 and say they are 北直隶人, for instance. So if that happened, then our program cannot really count this man as from his original extended family. And then there's a phenomenon called 观念, is that as time went by, more and more Jingshi tend to lower down their age when they reported to the officials. So for example, if somebody was actually 50 years old when he passed the exam, there's a chance that he said to the official that he was only 35 or 36 years old. This helped him because it potentially will help him to get a better official post later. Because if you're too old when passing the exam, then probably the government won't consider you to be an ideal candidate for a good post. So some scholars even estimate that there's a 3-year lag between the real age and the official age recorded in the Jingshi. Yeah, but yeah, it's way beyond the scope of my research, so I cannot really determine how this phenomenon can adjust my data. And the third limitation is, of course, the scope of data coverage. Now there are about 14,000 Jingshi data in the CBDB. That's slightly less than 60% of all the Jingshi in the Ming. So perhaps if we add more and more data into this database, we can have a better sense of the whole picture. So given these limitations, I think the number of Jingshi per family in my research may be underestimated. For example, there's a case study of the Wang family of Shandong Xincheng. And the case study is based on local gazetteers. So actually there's a nice family tree drawn for this family. And the case study shows that this family actually produced 14 Jingshi in the Ming. But in my research, I only got 7 of them. This is mainly because others, the records for the Jingshi Dengke Lu are missing in the database. So this sounds very unfortunate. So I guess perhaps the number of Jingshi per family should be even higher. And next, I think the number of Jingshi family may also be underestimated because, as I say, there are some blurred data, there are some data missing. Whenever it happens, I cannot really count it as a legitimate family member. So perhaps there are more families, especially families which only produce like 2 or 3 Jingshi. So the number may be even more. And a final word on the interpretation of data and percentage and figures. I think one of He Bingdi's problem is that he claims that because there are only there are like 30% of Jingshi coming from grassroots families, the level of social mobility in the Ming was very high. But actually, I think this link is arbitrary. So the measurement of social mobility and the measurement of the data that I produced, even if this data are accurate, we still should take care when we interpret this data. And this speaks to the importance of juxtaposing digital humanities with traditional methods of historical research. Okay, that's basically my presentation. Thanks everyone for your time.